You don't understand who I am. One phone call to my father, and you'll be packing your bench by noon. The air in Providence Municipal Court thickens like steam trapped under glass. Sunlight slants through high windows, catching dust motes suspended in absolute silence. 26 years old, designer sunglasses pushed into her honey blonde hair, she stands before the bench not with humility, but with the quiet certainty of someone who's never been told no. Across from her, Judge Frank Caprio, 90 years old, wrinkles mapped by decades of mercy and resolve. He doesn't rise, doesn't blink, just slowly removes his glasses, click, and sets them down beside a worn copy of the Rhode Island Constitution. His hands rest, steady on the oak. No tremor, no retreat. In that breath, the room holds its collective pulse. This isn't traffic court anymore. This is the fault line where privilege meets principle, and something ancient stirs beneath the gavel. Because what happens next won't just decide a fine. It will reignite a nation's faith in the one promise every American still believes in. Justice doesn't know your last name. This wasn't about speeding, 82 in a 25 school zone, tires screeching past flashing crosswalk lights. This was about who gets to break the rules. Her father, Governor Marcus Langley, didn't just run Rhode Island. He curated it, appointed judges, slashed legal aid budgets, called critics emotional. And his daughter? Alexandra Langley didn't get pulled over. She got interrupted. Body cam shows her rolling down her tinted window, voice dripping with condescension. "Officer, I have a 10 a.m. with the Secretary of State. Do you really want to do this?" When he persisted, she snapped. "My father's going to hear about this." Now here she stands, no lawyer, no remorse, expecting Caprio nearing retirement to fold like cheap paper. Whispers ripple through the gallery. He renovated this courthouse with Langley's approval. He needs their support for the senior judge initiative. Why risk it all over one reckless drive? But those whispers forget who they're talking about. This is the same man who once dismissed a $127 fine for a grandmother, then reached into his own pocket to buy her bus tickets home. The same judge who told a sobbing teen, "Your worth isn't on this docket." If he caves now, the message echoes far beyond Providence. Power beats principle. And if he stands, he doesn't just sentence a driver, he reclaims the soul of American justice. Because in this room, right now, the Constitution isn't just parchment, it's on trial, and the whole country is watching. Alexandra Langley wasn't born into power. She was inoculated with it. From her first birthday party at the governor's mansion to her Williams College acceptance, sealed not by grades but by a $250,000 development contribution, her life was a masterclass in soft impunity. She learned early, rules weren't boundaries, they were suggestions for people without leverage. At 19, caught with cocaine in a borrowed Mercedes, the charges vanished after a quiet lunch between her father and the DA. At 24, she launched Langley Strategic Initiatives, a consultancy with 0 public clients, yet awarded 3 no-bid state contracts totaling $1.2 million. Her Instagram feed reads like a manifesto of curated privilege. # Providence royalty, legacy in action, born to lead. Always center frame, always above the fray, always just out of reach of consequence. Her father, Governor Marcus Langley, perfected the art of performative populism, campaigning on law and order while quietly defunding public defenders, praising small businesses while fast-tracking corporate tax breaks. He called Judge Caprio a Rhode Island treasure in speeches, then muttered sentimental old fool in closed-door sessions. He believed governance wasn't about service, it was about control. A system where loyalty was rewarded, dissent was sidelined, and justice was calibrated by last name. Lexi absorbed it all, the coded language, the raised eyebrows, the unspoken understanding that certain families didn't follow the system. They steered it. So when Officer Ruiz refused to let her go, she didn't panic. She calculated. Traffic court, elderly judge, 1 phone call, standard procedure. She had seen it work a dozen times. A glare disarmed a bouncer, a name drop softened a professor. A whispered, "My father will hear about this," made a DMV supervisor suddenly find a missing document. Power wasn't shouted. It was suggested, like fine wine meant to be savored, not swallowed. She walked into courtroom 2 expecting deference wrapped in apology. She got silence instead. And in that silence, an unfamiliar tremor. Not fear, something worse. Doubt. For the first time in her life, the script had been rewritten, and she wasn't holding the pen. What she didn't know, what no one in her gilded orbit ever taught her, was that some men don't measure power in connections, but in convictions. And the one before her? His loyalty wasn't bought. It was sworn. Decades ago, in a room far humbler than this, and he remembered every word. Frank Caprio's first courtroom was a folding chair behind the counter of his father's fruit store on Federal Hill. Crates of blood oranges and dusty figs formed the jury box, and justice was measured in honesty, not hours. His father, Salvatore, arrived in 1929 with $3 and a Sicilian accent thicker than tomato sauce. He scrubbed City Hall floors by night to pay for Frank's law books by day. Every evening, over plates of pasta e fagioli, he repeated the same lesson. Figlio mio, the world will try to make you small. Don't help them. Frank didn't go to law school to climb. He went to build ladders. In 1959, fresh out of Suffolk law, he took cases no one wanted. The dishwasher stiffed on wages, the widow facing eviction, the kid caught stealing bread. He won $17 for a seamstress owed months of pay, and she cried not from relief, but because someone had listened. Appointed judge in 1985, not by a governor's favor, but by a unanimous city council after neighbors wrote 8,000 letters begging for him, his courtroom became legend. No gavel, no robes for children, just a wooden bench, a box of tissues, and a sign he carved himself. Justice is blind, but it listens. He once dismissed a $179 ticket for a single mother, then reached into his pocket and paid her son's insulin copay on the spot. Another time, he danced with a little girl who brought him cupcakes, after forgiving her mother's parking fine. Colleagues called him soft. He called it precision, because punishment without understanding wasn't justice. It was just bureaucracy with teeth. Beneath the kindness, there was unyielding steel. In 1992, a developer slid an envelope across his desk, $500,000 in cash, to fast-track a toxic landfill permit. Caprio didn't just refuse. He reported him, testified, watched the man go to prison. When asked why he risked his career, he said simply, "The law isn't a ladder for the powerful to climb. It's a floor for the powerless to stand on." He turned down federal appointments, lucrative book deals, even a documentary offer, because fame distracts from duty. At 90, his hands tremble slightly when he lifts his coffee, but never when he lifts the oath. And that oath, it wasn't sworn on ambition or legacy or longevity. It was sworn on a promise, to the boy above the fruit store, to the mothers who weep in his courtroom, to the quiet, unbroken idea that in America, no one is too small to be seen, and no one is too big to be held accountable. So when Lexi Langley smirked and said, "One phone call," he didn't hear a threat. He heard his father's voice, clear as yesterday, whispering, "Never let them think you owe them silence." And after 63 years on the bench, he wasn't about to start now. Lexi scoffs, flipping her hair, and pulls out her phone. "Seriously, Your Honor? You're going to lecture me?" Her thumb hovers over speed dial. "Dad." She taps it, puts it on speaker. A tinny voice echoes, "Alex? Everything okay?" She shoots Caprio a look dripping with triumph. "I'm in traffic court. Judge Caprio's being difficult." A pause, then sharp, "Put him on." Caprio doesn't hesitate, doesn't flinch. He simply raises one aged finger, calm and deliberate, and says, voice low but resonant, "No, Governor." Lexi blinks. "Excuse me?" "This courtroom is not a conference call. Your father is not a party to these proceedings, and his title does not grant him standing here." The gallery inhales. Even the bailiff stiffens. Lexi's face flushes crimson. Humiliation, raw and unfamiliar, flickers in her eyes. She snaps the phone shut with a crack. "You'll regret this." Caprio leans forward just slightly. His voice isn't angry, it's clarifying, like light cutting through fog. "Young lady, in all my years, I've found regret only lives in two places, where duty was ignored and where truth was silenced." He opens the case file, thin, damning, irrefutable. The officer's report, the school zone signage photos, the body cam timestamp 8:07 a.m., dismissal hour. He looks up, not at her privilege, but at her humanity. "Shall we begin?" And in that question, quiet and unyielding, hangs the weight of everything. Her immunity, his integrity, and the fragile, enduring hope that in this room at least the law still applies to everyone. Caprio doesn't raise his voice, he deepens it, like roots gripping bedrock. "You said one phone call could end my career. Let me tell you what ends careers: corruption, cowardice, confusing public office with private property." He taps the frayed edge of the Constitution beside him. "My career began not with an appointment, but with an oath. Not to a governor, not to a party, but to we the people." A beat. The air hums. "You drove 82 miles per hour past children holding hands. You told an officer, 'Do you know who I am?' Yes, I do. You are someone who believes power is a birthright, not a trust. You are someone who thinks the law is a menu. Pick what you like, ignore what you don't." He leans in, eyes steady. "But here in this room, there are no VIP lanes, no backstage passes, no last names that outrank justice. Only facts, only truth, only accountability." Lexi opens her mouth to object, to threaten, to flee, but he holds up a palm. Not command, clarification. "I know your father. I've seen him cut ribbons, give speeches, smile for cameras, but I've also seen him cut funding for addiction outreach in Pawtucket. Ignore lead levels in Olneyville water. Call judges like me sentimental, as if empathy is a flaw, not the foundation." His voice softens, not in surrender, but sorrow. "So here is my sentence. 200 hours of community service, tutoring at the very school you endangered. A $5,000 fine, paid directly to the crossing guard's therapy fund. She still wakes up screaming from flashbacks." He pauses, lets it land. "And this. Every Friday for 1 month, you will sit in this courtroom, not as defendant, as student. You will watch the single mother choose between rent and a ticket. You will hear the veteran explain why he ran that red light. It was to get his daughter's insulin. You will learn what who you are truly means. Not your father's name on a building, but what you do when no one's watching, and everyone is counting on you." He closes the file. Looks at her not with judgment, but with invitation. "Power doesn't come from a phone call, Miss Langley. It comes from the courage to answer one." The live stream glitched for 3 seconds, then surged. By 8:23 p.m., Caprio Standard trended globally. A clip titled "The Bench That Bent for No One" hit 14 million views before midnight. Harvard Law emailed his clerk, "May we archive this as a case study in judicial courage." Maria Ruiz, the crossing guard, still in physical therapy from the near miss, woke to $250,000 in donations. She didn't keep a dime. She redirected every dollar to install speed bumps and crossing guards at all Providence elementary schools. Governor Langley held a press conference, jaw tight. "My daughter is learning a valuable lesson in accountability." Behind closed doors, his chief of staff sent a panicked memo. Caprio's approval rating just hit 94%. Attacking him is political suicide. Even ideological opposites bowed. Chief Justice Sotomayor, at a judicial ethics symposium, paused mid-speech. Some judges interpret the law, others, like Frank Caprio, embody it. Senator Cory Booker posted a video from the Senate floor. That wasn't a courtroom, it was a chapel, and he was the preacher. But the true earthquake came from the ground up. A Bronx high school teacher played the clip in her civics class. A 16-year-old named Jamal, hoodie, eyes down, stood slowly and recited Caprio's final line from memory. "Power doesn't come from a phone call. It comes from the courage to answer one." The room erupted in a standing ovation that lasted 2 full minutes. Meanwhile, Lexi Langley showed up for her first Friday session. Silent, sunglasses off, hair pulled back. By week 3, she stayed late to help a Guatemalan mother fill out forms in broken English. No cameras, no captions, just a young woman finally listening. And in Caprio's office, the letters poured in, not from politicians, but from people. The Uber driver who'd been profiled, the nurse denied a promotion for her accent, the veteran told his service didn't count because he enlisted after 9/11. Each one ending the same way. Thank you for proving we still matter. Weeks later, a plain envelope arrived on Caprio's desk. No return address, just a smudged fingerprint on the seal. Inside, 3 handwritten lines on lined notebook paper. You didn't just sentence me, you saw me. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to deserve it. He pinned it beside his father's old fruit crate label, S. Caprio and Sons, St. 1929. 2 testaments to dignity built, not inherited. At his 63rd judicial anniversary, reporters crowded the steps of the courthouse shouting, "Judge, how do you stand firm when the powerful push?" He smiled, not triumphant, but tender. There is no secret, only a memory. I remember the boy above the fruit store told he'd never be one of them. I remember the mother who sold her wedding ring to pay a $50 fine. I remember that justice isn't a trophy for the powerful. It's a promise to the powerless. He paused, the autumn sun catching the silver in his eyebrows. And promises? You don't protect them with anger. You protect them with presence. Because in the end, America isn't saved by monuments of marble or monuments of men. It's saved by moments like a wooden bench, a quiet voice, and the refusal to look away. It's saved by the understanding that the highest office in this land isn't governor, isn't senator, isn't even judge. It's citizen. And citizenship isn't about bloodline or bank account. It's about showing up, day after day, case after case, and choosing again and again to believe that in this fragile, fierce experiment we call America, the law still bends toward justice. Not because it's easy, but because someone, somewhere, still has the courage to hold it steady. Lexi Langley had made a threat, but history wouldn't quote her words. It would remember his reply. Because Judge Caprio didn't just defend a courtroom that day. He defended you, your dignity, your dream, your right to be seen, no matter your name, your accent, or your zip code. And somewhere in 1,000 quiet rooms, a new generation was learning. Dignity isn't given. It's defended. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's defended by a 90-year-old man with a voice like worn leather and a heart that still believed, fiercely, in the America we promised each other.